it's always hard when you have two large companies, even if you buy a small company, because every company has a different culture, and you try to combine those. But you just do your best to communicate, just like property management. There's like, you got to communicate.
I don't throw darts at a board. I bet on sure things. Read Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Every battle is won before it's ever fought. Think about it.
Welcome to another episode of the Profitable Property Management Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Muela, and today I have none other than Andy Propst with me. Andy, thanks for coming on, brother.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
This is great. We're just diving right in. I like it.
Yeah, there's no other way to do it.
Yeah, I like it.
Otherwise, all the good stuff gets recorded while the camera's off. So you just walked in the room, and we're just diving in. So I want to get an update on a couple of things. You and I have podcasted, 3-4 times. We've done it on my podcast. We've done some other podcasts.
Yeah.
You're a consummately interesting figure in the industry.
That's so nice.
Doing interesting things. So I want to get the update from you. What has been new in your world? What are you working on? Give me the state of Andy Propst.
Yeah, I mean, we have been busy. I took my company, as some people know, some people don't, so I'll give you a little background. Took my company along with two other co-founders. We created a company called HomeRiver Group back in 2016. So that's been 5 years ago, 2 days ago, or 6 years ago. So we had our 6-year anniversary.
Congrats.
So, yeah, that's pretty cool. We partnered with a private equity company. Since then, we've done over 20 acquisitions, one of which recently last year was Property Frameworks. Crazy. Doubled our size.
It's a huge acquisition.
Quite a big ripple. A lot of work, but our team, got it done. It was crazy. So we've been integrating those two cultures, and they've got great service. They came from Realogy, which is obviously a public company. So we bought a public company, a division of a public company, and then merged it with our company, which was super exciting. We all learned a lot, and we're just merging those two cultures together. Luckily, they're great people. And we retained almost 100% of them, which has been amazing. Because as you know, it's just so hard to find good people.
Of course. Let's dig in here. There's a lot of meat on the bone with this one.
There's a lot. There's so much.
So how did this deal come together? Did you find it? Did it find you? How did that come together?
Yes, it's a good question. So Robert Way, you probably know that name.
Absolutely.
So he was the main guy that started this whole thing. He originally bought Mark Creditor's company, Get Their First Realty, back in, I think it was 2014 or 2013, and then started doing small acquisitions, grew organically through the Realogy name. And I just got to know Robert over the years and, introduced him to some people on our team. So I think they were talking to some other companies, and luckily for us, we were the right fit for them. So if it wasn't for NARPM, I would have never met Robert, and this deal probably would have never happened. So, NARPM put him in front of me way back in the day. And we just, even though we were obviously competitors, just like everybody else in NARPM, we just treat each other as colleagues and try to help each other out. And I've got a great story about potentially hiring one of his people, and we had some talks back and forth. Ultimately, we didn't hire him because we didn't want to make that relationship sour.
That could be awkward.
It could have been super awkward. So that was like 2 years before we acquired him, and I think because we did the right thing and didn't burn that relationship. I think he respected us and came to us and said, "Hey, we're going a different direction. We're going to really focus on real estate."
I want to hear about that. That's really interesting.
Business, yeah.
To exit instead of leaning in. What is the calculus, as best you understand it, on Realogy's part to make that strategic decision?
Yeah, I think obviously the real estate market just got really hot, and the property management business was just a distraction, and they really just wanted to focus on continuing. Obviously, Realogy is massive. So if the listeners aren't familiar, Realogy has Coldwell Banker 2021 for 21st Century Real Estate. Was it called Century 21? I got it backwards. Century 21. Better Homes and Gardens. So they're the largest real estate franchisor in the world.
Wow.
And they somehow got into this property management business, and they said, you know what, this is not, the direction we want to go. And luckily for us, we were there. We were there to be able to take that vertical from them and add it to our business.
Now, how do you feel about that in reverse? What does the brokerage function look like for HRG?
Yeah, so we focus on brokerage generally across all of our locations are licensed. We have brokers, we have agents, but it's a very small portion of what we do. I mean, our main focus is third party full service property management, maintenance coordination, maintenance. We do some brokerage. I spend a very small amount of my time doing real estate brokerage, mostly on the multifamily side, but generally we are full service property management shop. But we're trying, just like most companies right now, is if investors do want to sell, we try to retain that business, either sell it to another investor that we have, or try to keep it in house and sell it to a retail buyer.
So back to the property frameworks deal. What was the timing? Talk to me about due diligence. I mean, this is a monster deal. How does a deal like this go down?
Yeah, I mean, again, it always goes back to relationships. So again, that relationship with Robert and the other folks. One of my best friends in the property management business used to work for them. So I always had a great relationship with the folks at Property Framework. So once we heard that they might be available for sale, immediately got with my team, our private equity company, got the information, and then it was just a massive amount of due diligence. We actually closed the deal pretty quick. I think it was like 60 days.
60 days.
Yes.
You did the due diligence in 60 days.
Diligence and close in 60 days.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Andy, that is wild.
Yeah. And then we took a couple months towards the end of the year to kind of just let them continue to do what they did. And then once 2021 came along, we integrated the two companies. So.
And was there anything that was more or less onerous about acquiring a division of a publicly traded company?
No, not really. I mean, I wasn't, the private equity team and our acquisitions team, luckily we have that, so I wasn't involved in the day-to-day, like what there's so many attorneys involved in a deal like that, that they check all those boxes. So there probably was some stuff that had to get done. What that is, I don't remember, or I don't, I'm not sure.
Now, how do you onboard, and what was it? How large was the acquisition?
They had between 12 and 13,000 units.
So how do you onboard 12,000 units, Andy?
Well, yeah, good question. I'll let you know when we figure that out. Just kidding. Again, we like day one, we all jumped on the phone. So, our president and CEO, myself, some of the other, C-suite leaders at HRG jumped on. They had everybody on the call at the same time. So we did this during COVID. It was like crazy, like at the end of 2020. So a lot going on. So we had their whole company on, and we made this announcement. And we just tried to be as open and honest and clear about what we were going to do. Obviously we valued what they did and all the employees, and so we just tried to make that clear from the beginning. And then they saw, basically after we made the acquisitions, that their key people had key roles at HRG, and that they stayed. So it's always hard when you have two large companies, even if you buy a small company, because every company has a different culture, and you try to combine those. But you just do your best to communicate, just like property management. There's like you got to communicate. So over communicate. Be there if they have questions, and luckily we have a really good HR team. And we just deployed as many folks as we could to make sure that transition went smoothly. And I think we did a great job because we retained most of the folks, if not all of them.
There's always those questions about what culture is going to win.
Yes.
Are they going to feel like the outsiders coming in?
Sure.
Are the insiders going to be kind and inviting? Or are they going to be territorial?
Right.
That's incredible you've been able to have that level of retention.
Yes.
When you think about the overall play that HRG is executing, I'd love to hear from you how you would describe the playbook that HRG is running as contrasted against some of the other larger national players.
Sure.
For our listeners out there, what are some of the distinctives of the playbook that you feel like you're running?
Yeah, I mean, we've got, obviously, I think one of the key things that we offer, right, especially to institutionals and mom and pops that have properties in multiple states, we're in 60 plus markets. That's pretty good coverage in this business, right? So there's other larger companies that are out there trying to do what we're doing or have done or whatever, but we have great coverage. So as all this institutional capital comes in the space, especially in the build to rent space, all these other small funds that are raising money, because raising money right now, it's the easiest it's ever been in the history of raising money. There's money everywhere. People can raise it, but they don't have time to get their operations together. They can raise the capital, they can go out and acquire stuff, but the nuts and bolts of managing the property is very difficult. So we get a lot of those institutional leads right now because people just are having a hard time building a property building a property management vertical overnight, and they can't do it. So that's a big play for us right now, just our coverage, and the fact that all those companies, they had years and years of experience in those markets, and we've retained those people that we've acquired those companies. So you look at like a Bob Machado, a Steve Foster, some of these past presidents of NARPM. We've acquired their company. Robert Locke acquired their company. They've been there forever. They have knowledge that goes back decades. And so we have that local expertise in all those markets. And we allow those folks to operate their business because, as you know, property management is super fragmented. It's different from market to market, from city to city, even in the same state. So we give them, kind of operational ability to do what they need to do. But we are all in the same system, and all that information goes in the system the same way. So our reporting is great.
I want to hear more details related to institutional. Institutional is like a mixed bag, right? Like for some folks, it's very attractive because it's a large ramp. It's a lot of units. It can be a big check. Other folks will tell you, well, eventually they're going to internalize. Yep. They're going to be demanding. They're going to make you use Yardi, specialized reporting. Sure. For folks that are interested or have interacted with the possibility of servicing an institutional client, what's the eyes wide open caveats that you would give around serving that kind of clientele?
Sure. Well, look, yeah, you're right. If you talk about institutional investors to property managers, you're going to get mostly negative feedback, right? Because it didn't go well the first time. The institutions didn't do the property managers any favors, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. So, they got overwhelmed. The property management companies went from 200 doors to 500 doors overnight, and it just didn't go well. So it was a very quick ramp and then a very quick pullback. So we didn't have a HomeRiver group or a Mind or a Pure back then that was really trained to handle institutions. We have 600, 700, 800 employees. We have a lot of resources we can throw at something. So I'm hoping the second time around with the resources that we have, it's going to be a different story for these institutions, that they can feel confident to reach out to us and say, look, it's a different experience because you guys have the resources, you have the institutional knowledge to be able to handle these things, versus last time they just called up a bunch of mom and pops that had 300 or 400 doors and said, here's 1,000 doors, good luck. And everybody's like, yeah, we can do it. And then 6 months later, it wasn't working out.
All right, let's pivot off of institutional here. That was interesting.
Yeah, so just real quick, because you were going somewhere, I think it was important because generally institutions, as they get large enough, they go public, and we understand that they need to internalize for that offering, right? But is
that like a hard requirement?
Generally that's what most of them were saying, but the different flavor of management generally is what they hit. In one market they'd have great experience, in another market they'd have a horrible experience. So they just tried to make that service consistent across all markets. Sure. So they internalized that business. But again, we have companies that are in multiple markets and can handle that influx of units, whatever it is. So I think if we can do a good job, and our competitors, our colleagues out there that are trying to do what we do, if they can do a good job and offer consistent service across multiple markets, then that temptation for them to internalize is not going to be there like it was the first time. So I hope we can take advantage of this second round of institutional players and do a better job of them giving us the units and us managing those units. And I'm saying not HRG, I'm talking about property managers broadly in general. Then we can retain that business, because sure, there's a bunch of institutionals that went public, but there's hundreds of them that haven't, and there's hundreds more that are currently raising money and buying homes like crazy right now because the capital's on the sidelines.
Well, let's just talk about what the profile or the interests of the institutional client. We talk about reporting, they're making me use Yardi, whatever. What are their specific priorities that you're catering to? And not just the things that they make you do to conform to their way of doing business, but what are the interests that are driving the demands that they're making?
Yeah, one thing that we see all the time is just consistency in reporting. It's all about the numbers. It's all about reporting. So making sure that we have, because we have actually at HRG, we have an institutional accounts group, IAG. Dedicated to all the institutional business that we manage. And we've managed for some of these companies for 6-7 years. And they're still hiring us, and they buy homes every month. And there's some that have just raised a bunch of money that are just buying, a couple hundred, couple thousand units a month even. It's crazy. But what they want is consistent service, consistent data. That's if we can do that, that's the 20% that knocks out the 80%. If we can, get all the folks that they have, if we can answer their questions, if we can get them the data and the data is clean, then they're happy, right? They're not worried about occupancy rates or whatever. They just really want good service and good data. And if we can do that, we solve their problems.
A corollary to this conversation would be the broader concern about institutions absorbing a large increasing size of U.S. housing. Is this good for the economy? Is it bad for the economy? Good for the industry, bad for the industry? What's your take on that?
Yeah. Well, look, it's probably a good thing because people need the flexibility to rent homes, right? There's been a bunch of apartments that were built, and those were built because a lot of the single family inventory that was for rent was decimated because of the real estate market. A lot of those investors, reluctant investors or non-reluctant investors, said, look, the prices are too high. It's time to kick out the tenants and monetize this investment, right? So that happened, from call it 2013 until today. Most of those reluctant landlords have sold long ago. So that decimated the single family. As you know, a lot of these companies went from 1,000 rental properties that they managed down to 400. It wasn't because they were offering a bad service. It's just because the market was hot and they sold all these things. But there's still a huge demand, as you know, to rent single family homes. So you have institutions that can go out there and raise that money and provide that product. There's still not enough, but if they weren't doing it, I don't think anybody else would be doing it at these prices. So I think for the demand of real estate and renters, the flexibility to rent a single family home, I think it's a really good thing. Obviously, it makes it very hard for mom and pop investor to go out there and pencil a 4 cap single family rental when they're used to buying them at an 8, 9, and 10 cap. So, but you put your money in bonds or you put your money in the bank account and you're not getting a good return. So these institutions are saying, look, we've got to go find return somewhere. The best hedge against inflation, as you know, is real estate. And so maybe today they're overpaying for something, but probably not tomorrow. Real estate's pretty darn good asset to get in. They're not making any more of it, man.
That's
print
right.
a lot more dollars, but they're not making any more real estate.
That's right. And I'm sure inevitably at some point there will be a market turn, but what's not going to change is the fundamentals of the business. One of the fundamentals of the business is the decisions that you make around what kind of asset class to manage, how you're going to run the business.
Right.
Talk to me about the compounding complexity of managing different asset classes and different markets. There's clearly a lift here.
Sure.
Different
100%.
regulatory environments. What's the 80-20 of navigating that to take maximal advantage of the revenue opportunities while not stepping in it by embracing edge cases and a level of complexity that can just make it unwieldy?
Yeah, those edge cases are so tempting, but you got to like regulate it. So yeah, we're only really in 2 asset classes. Single family, small multifamily, and then traditional multifamily. That's all we do. We don't do office. We don't do industrial. So, but we as we grow bigger and bigger, and I think one thing that I think one asset that we have is I feel like we have the best sales team in property management.
You're a crack A team. For
obviously,
sure.
we use your software. We couldn't do without it. Right.
We love that. Happy to partner with you.
I think we've got 20 full-time BDMs across, the country trying to cover 60 markets. It's a big job. And of course they get paid by bringing on units. And so, but we have great regional managers, local market managers that say, here's the guidelines where we bring these on, where we bring these on. And we have to stick to those guidelines. And then on the multifamily side, there's a lot of opportunity there, especially on the build to rent side and build to rent on single family side. So we completely manage that business differently than we do our single family side. We have a different software, we have a different model, we have different management fees. It's apples and oranges. So we use that business mostly for build to rent single site communities and traditional multifamily, and then all the other is single family and duplexes and fourplexes. That's all we do. So if we kind of stay within those bounds, we don't typically bring on anything that's, I'd call it, less than a C plus asset. We can operate generally the same across most markets.
Could you give me a quick hit list of the most common unforced errors that you see property managers inflicting on their own businesses?
Oh my gosh. The big one, especially as we do a lot of the diligence, there's as you know, and a lot of it, and it's not a huge issue, but just not having the resources and the accounting, that need to be there for property accounting, for corporate accounting. So we spend a lot of time, especially with the smaller companies, trying to get that data right. So they know.
I bet you wish they were all in the NARPM accounting standard.
Oh, 100%. 100%. That was one of the best things we did at NARPM. Having some clear guidance on accounting, and it's so hard to even hire these accounting folks that can do a good job on the property side. So we see a lot of frustration from the ownership on the property accounting. We sometimes see weird stuff in the books on the corporate accounting, which again we can work through that. That's not an issue. And then just as you probably know, and I'm not saying anything bad about property managers, but just the reluctancy to implement new whatever, a better service,
change management,
an ancillary revenue, hiring a BDM, changing their property management software because their software isn't working. I challenge property managers in my business and outside my business. As you know, most of my best friends are competitors of mine. I'll challenge them. Hey, you got to step into the discomfort, right? And this people that have their property management business, they're generally just kind of scared to step out of that comfort zone and try something new. And it's holding them back, and no matter what company it is, if they work for HRG or not, I want them to be successful. I want them to offer good service because that helps lift our whole industry up. And I see a lot of property managers just put up with a lot of crap, do the same thing they're always doing because they're just afraid to just step into that discomfort. And that's where magic happens, when you get up and you push yourself to go do something that you don't want to do, but ultimately it's going to be great in the long run. So that would be my general challenge to the property management industry is, hey, put your, like software companies, you guys have a roadmap, right? And you work on it. Do you hit it perfectly every time? No. But that's what I'd say. Hey, if you're a property management company and hey, if I did these two things and these two things only in 2020, 2022, it would make the greatest impact to my business. And for heaven's sake, just freaking do it. Even though it's hard, you got to work a little harder. You might miss a ball game or whatever, but it's going to pay off in the long run. And you know what? A lot of these property managers, the guys, the owners, a lot of the times they don't want to do this stuff because their employees push back on it. Mm-hmm. I don't want to make my employees upset or whatever. But ultimately, it's going to be good for them too, because you're going to make more money. You're going to make their lives easier. In the meantime, it might be a little difficult, but eventually, it's going to be a better place to work. You're going to make more money, but you just got to get over that immediate discomfort.
You got to share the vision and hold the vision.
Yeah.
I love that. Let's end it here. Could you give me one book and one podcast that's been impactful to you over the last couple of years?
Yeah. I'm reading a book. I'm trying to remember the guy's last name. His first name's Jordan. It's a brand new book. Just came out. It's called You Deserve This, SHIT.
Okay.
It's fantastic. So again, if you're looking for a book that's going to challenge you and push you out of your comfort zone, because it happens to everybody, right? as human nature, we look to go into the safe space, right? So I'm constantly listening to Audible or podcasts or something to keep pushing myself out there to basically embrace discomfort because it's easy in this society to get comfortable, right? So I've just got to keep telling myself, like, go out there and do that. So that's a great book. You Deserve This Shit. It's by Jordan. I think his last name starts with a P.
We'll drop it in the show notes. We'll find it.
Great. It's a great book. It's a local guy in Seattle did the book. Podcast, Smartless. Love it. Smartless. So Will Arnett.
Yeah, I know what
Sean
you're talking
Hayes,
about.
and Jason Bateman.
Definitely not a business.
No. There's so many business nuggets that come out of there.
Yeah,
because they're interviewing these Hollywood folks and comedians and business folks, but they all have side businesses and kind of what they're doing and how they manage all that stuff. So if you think you're busy, get on that podcast and see what all these people are doing. And it'll really put your life in perspective. Like, yeah, I can do more. I can manage my life better to go do more. And it's super funny. And yeah, I look forward every Monday when the new podcast comes out. They're a great group of guys, and I really love how it teaches you to kind of to step into the conversation. They're really good about stepping into the conversation, not shutting down other people. It's a great listen. It's super funny too.
I love the share. We're going to drop it in the show notes.
Sweet.
I want to thank you for your generosity to the industry. I really appreciate people like you that as your success has grown, you seem like you've contributed even more and given even more back to the industry.
Obviously it's given me so much, especially, NARPM and the people here are just so kind and wonderful. It's, if there's anything I can do to help anybody with anything, always willing to do it. Always willing.
Thanks again for coming on another time.
Thanks for having me, man. Good time.
Until next time.
Jordan here asking you, what do you got? What is a question you want to ask me? Can you stump me? Can you throw me something hard, perplexing, vexing, something you feel tied up in knots with? Throw it at me. I'll do my best to try and answer that question, to dissect it, to parse out the nuance and maybe help you get a bit more clarity. I'm looking for questions as the basis for creating content, and you're looking for answers as the basis for clarity. And wouldn't it be perfect if those two things matched up? Drop a comment, send me an email, jordan@leadsimple.com. Let's stay in the conversation. Peace.